Collins said yesterday that a 6-month CR could have a devastating impact on defense spending. Do you think your House colleagues should drop this idea of 6-month CR and do a 3-month CR until December?
I think we first have to wait and see what the House sends us. My only observation about this whole discussion is the one thing you cannot have is a government shutdown. It would be politically beyond stupid for us to do that right before the election, because certainly we'd get the blame. And one of my favorite old sayings is there's no education in the second kick of a mule. We've been here before. I'm for whatever avoids a government shutdown, and that'll ultimately end up, obviously, being a discussion between the Democratic leader and the Speaker of the House as to how to process avoiding government shutdown.
Yeah, there he is, Mitch McConnell himself saying how dumb this is, what a stupid idea is to have yet another government shutdown. But this is where we are. Once again, the Trump government shutdown is pending. Once again, Mike Johnson, one of the most ineffectual speakers in American history, has managed to not pass a budget, not pass a spending bill, not pass a CR even, as we face just, I think, 10 days till a government shutdown. 47 days for the election, okay? Not only is it political suicide, but it just shows how incompetent and irresponsible the House Republican leadership has been for this last 2 years. I'm not sure we could have a better example going into the election than themselves not even being able to get their own party to unite and pass a spending bill. But here's the thing. We've got not just that, okay? Not just that. The CR, the continuing resolution he did try to pass, a 6-month CR that was rejected. Well, what else? Veterans will pay the bill. You know, Vote Vets has highlighted the fact that hidden in that CR are things that once again make our veterans pay the price for their incompetence. So we're going to talk loud. We're going to talk about this. We're going to bring in a couple of experts. We're going to jump on this right away and have conversation. I've got the perfect people to do it. Our own government affairs director and former Congressman Max Rose. So let's bring them on in. Max and Mary, let's join the show and let's talk some more. There's Max.
What's going on?
There's Mary. Welcome. Glad to have you. I didn't mention the top. I am Fred Wellman, host of On the Line with Vote Vets. I'm a retired Army officer, 22 years, and did some combat tours. Old 101st guy. Max Rose, former congressman from Staten Island. He is also an Army officer, combat veteran of Afghanistan. Also still serving the United States Army National Guard. I was teasing him earlier that he cut his hair today for his National Guard drill. and of course, Mary Kaczynski is the Government Affairs Director for Vote Vets. She is an expert on these spending bills and what's happening. So I don't know this stuff, so I brought in people who know what's going on. Max, I wanted to start with you. You know, you served up there. Did you have a shutdown while you were serving? I can't remember if you did or not.
Yeah, so I was a part of the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. You know, there's things that can be really dysfunctional in politics that still make political sense. And then there's this. You know, if you're the speaker, you should care about one thing and one thing only, which is staying the speaker. But that's not what's motivating him right now. You know, if all he cared about was staying the speaker, he would care about appealing to independent voters. He'd care about his critical incumbents that are in Biden districts, and he'd care about his challengers that are trying to win really difficult seats. And as a consequence, his goal would be to present the Republican Party as the rational party that is seeking, that shows that it can govern, right? And look, this is not just me saying this, you know, from the vantage point of theory. At the height of COVID, right, in let's say October, September of 2020, August of 2020, and even a little bit earlier, Donald Trump's in office, right? And still you saw Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House pass substantive bipartisan bills because that was her job. She was legislating, but she also viewed it as imperative to show the American people that that's what the Democratic Party is all about. What you're seeing right now, though, is a Republican Party that is committed to Trumpist dysfunction, right? Yeah. It's committed to MAGA extremism. And again, I go back to, and I'm dying to hear what Mary is thinking, you know, when you're in an off year, political dysfunction also makes sense because what everyone's saying is, listen, man, I got my primary coming up, all right? And a primary elected is very different than a general elected. There's no one in the Congress right now that has an upcoming primary this year. Nobody. It is all about general elections. It's all about the majority. It's all about that hardcore independent group of people. And nonetheless, they still remain beholden to a minority of their party, a minority in the United States of America, which is the MAGA extremist base.
Right. And Donald Trump told them to shut it down. I mean, Donald Trump said to pass the SAVE Act. Donald Trump said, don't pass the bill, did he?
Yeah, like it's Trump's party.
There you go.
And normally, someone who's 46 days, 45 days, whatever it is, away from a presidential election would not want to come off as a loony bin committed to the destruction of the United States of America. But what Donald Trump believes right now is that the worse things are, the better it is for him. And first of all, I think that's a wrong political calculus, but also it's just goddamn immoral. It's the opposite of patriotism.
Yeah.
And that just defines his character.
Yeah. Mary, so let's circle back to the bill they tried to pass, right?
Yeah,
they tried to pass a continuing resolution. You tipped me off in one of our conversations that, as always, one of the things we say often here in the Vote Vets on the line in our conversations is that, typically you got to find out where people spend their money, where the priorities are, right? And so while the Republicans are always saying they love vets, they support vets, what we always find when we dig into the fine print and look at the line items, we discover they're trying to cut our money, aren't they? And they did that again, didn't they, this time?
That's exactly right. What we're seeing right here is Project 2025 play out in action. House Republicans are carrying out this MAGA extremist agenda that they were dumb enough to write down. So now we all know about it. But what this really comes down to, I think, is it's revealing how the VA is a direct threat to the extremist MAGA agenda. Republicans hate the VA.
Yeah.
Republicans' theory is we want small government, right? They don't want government to do anything really except, monitor women's periods. But if the VA is delivering quality health care to millions of veterans, if the VA succeeds, that's a direct threat to what Republicans want to do. That's why Republicans have been trying for decades to privatize the VA. They've been chronically attacking VA funding so that they can then claim that the VA is incompetent, so they have an excuse to underfund it again and eventually dismantle it.
Yeah.
That's laid out pretty clearly in Project 2025. It's been the Republican agenda, though, again, for decades. We're really just seeing that, officially now.
Yeah.
So the CR that Mike Johnson proposed, which failed because he can't get his caucus together, it underfunded the VA by $12 billion. The reason the VA has this shortfall is because they've been enormously successful at delivering quality care to millions of veterans, especially thanks to the PACT Act. Because of PACT, because the VA is delivering health care to veterans with cancer from burn pits exposure, and because more veterans than expected are using their GI Bill benefits to get an education, Republicans hate that. But the VA has been successful. Again, direct threat to Republicans. They now need more money to continue to be successful. And Republicans like Mike Johnson don't want to give it to them.
Right. I mean, 12 billion is no joke. Where was that coming out of? Where was their idea of that 12 billion being cut from?
Sure. So the VA requested an additional $12 billion. They're going to need that money starting next year.
Yeah.
Republicans refused to put it into their 6-month budget proposal.
Wow. So I guess for people, can you just do me a favor? Maybe Max would be good for this. Can you explain what a continuing resolution does? I don't think a lot of Americans really understand. When you see your CR, people think, oh, that's just the budget temporary, right? But there's a nuance to CR. It's why it makes especially us national security and veterans affairs guys so crazy. Tell our folks, what does CR mean? I mean, what is that? Why is that so? Why do we all hate that so much?
So CR freezes a budget in time, and basically and extends it. So why is this dangerous? Well, every single year, the Congress comes together and perhaps in one of its few moments of bipartisan compromise, executes what's called the National Defense Authorization Act, in which it authorizes spending for the Department of Defense. Then the Appropriations Committee comes in and actually executes said spending. And that this is logical because the world changes. If we imagine if we had a CR from 4 years ago that just kept on going, that CR would not, the budget would not account for the war in Ukraine. Right. The budget would not account for the revolution in drone warfare. The budget wouldn't account for China's increased aggression against Taiwan and generally in the South China Sea and the region writ large. So this is why we reauthorize funding for the Department of Defense each and every single year. So when you have a CR, what happens is that things get frozen in time, and it doesn't even account for things like inflation. It doesn't account for things like soldier pay raises. It is a massive hit. And for this reason, I one of the things I love about politics and Congress is just you have these weird, strange bedfellows that come out of nowhere. So who were the Republicans that voted against Mike Johnson's CR? You had the far right nutty folks that said, we don't want a CR because we don't like the current level of spending. We want government to be smaller, not the same level, right?
Right.
Then you had the Republicans who consider themselves pro-national security minded individuals who said, no, we don't want this CR for the exact reasons that we just laid out. And those were the folks that lined up with the Democrats. It's rare in life for you to kind of like have this like meta double expression of incompetence. And like so what Speaker Johnson successfully did here is, one, he advanced a policy proposal that in and of itself is dangerous and incompetent. Then he also showed himself to just be an incompetent political tactician because he was unable to cobble together the votes to actually pass his incompetent bill. And this is, remember, Nancy Pelosi, in her half decade as speaker, or more, 6-7 years as speaker, never once lost the vote. Never once.
She did bring
nonetheless, this guy loses votes all the time. Sometimes he loses the votes and says, I plan to lose the vote. It was a win. What the? It's nuts.
4D chess, right? Well, that's the thing. I mean, that was what Nancy was famous for. Speaker Pelosi, Speaker Emeritus Pelosi, her, people beat her up for a lot of things, but she did not bring a bill to the floor if she didn't have the votes. She knew her caucus, right? She worked her caucus. You saw it working up there yourself, Mary, I'm sure, as a staffer, as working for us. She did not bring things to the floor if they weren't ready to go, right?
Oh, that's absolutely right. I mean, Nancy Pelosi knew how to get bills passed because at the heart of it, she was there to deliver wins for the American people, right? Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, they're the ones who have always stood up for veterans, for bills that are going to deliver for the American people, the working class. And Republicans are out there under Mike Johnson attacking everything we've worked so hard for.
Right.
The really scary thing I think here too is how Mike Johnson's bill sort of hit all of the top bad hits, right? It was bad for the VA, right? $12 billion short for the VA.
Yeah.
The Department of Defense hated this bill too. It's bad for our national security.
There's JJ, John, we got something about that, right? John, throw something up for us there. I think we had a tweet or something, didn't we?
Yeah. Exactly right. This bill, terrible for veterans. Thank goodness we've got, Senate Democrats who are going to stand up for us. It's also really bad for national security. Again, as Max was alluding to, the Department of Defense needs a full year budget bill. They can't operate on last year's budget. They can't start new programs unless we get a 12-year budget bill. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Brown, actually came out opposing the bill too. He said the Johnson bill would be extremely detrimental to U.S. national security. There's also a bad voter suppression bill that's included in this thing. Again, all the greatest MAGA hits in this bill. Yep.
Yeah, this is big right here. Look at this here. This is the Joint Chiefs. I mean, first of all, guys, I want to, for our viewers who understand things like this, it is really, really rare for the Joint Chiefs, the military. And by the way, this is the Defense Secretary. This is the Joint Chiefs of the military putting out a statement, making it very clear that this continuing resolution greatly damages and it's detrimental to the readiness and modernization of the joint force. I mean, right? I mean, Max, you're military, and and you're a congressman. This is weird, isn't it?
Ordinarily weird, particularly because our generals have never been more politically conscious, right?
Right.
They are. This is the last thing he wanted to do. The last thing he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it's such
actually
a serious failure that it impinges upon his responsibilities and obligations that are inherent to his job as the top leader of the military. So, but just to kind of put this into perspective, right? How bad the Republicans are at their job. In 2 months, 3 months, there will begin formal discussions about the 2026 budget. The 2025 budget has not even been voted on, right? And they're already so things are going to get awfully weird when Congress is holding daily meetings crafting the 2026 budget, and they fail to execute the 2025 budget. But I think the American people want something very simple, and it's also what so many vote-fed candidates and members of the vote-fed community have done their entire life, which is just putting the country first.
Right.
And really, all Speaker Johnson had to do was say, "I'm ready to negotiate." That's it. And they would have gotten a budget done.
Yeah.
That's it, right? But the Democrats were even willing to compromise and do a CR for 6 weeks, a CR for 8 weeks. They were willing to say, "Listen, Bucko, I get it. I have political empathy for you. You are a fully owned subsidiary of Donald Trump Incorporated. You are a sycophant. I get it, and I understand. I feel for you. Let's give you a CR for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and we'll jump off the cliff together. We understand it's not perfect, but we'll do it together." This guy said no to that.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, what that means at this point was Speaker Johnson, and now we're kind of really getting into like politics, right? Speaker Johnson is more likely than not did not want this CR to pass. Right? He more likely than not threw this out on the floor, knowing that his own extremist base would oppose it. So then the question is, why did he do it? Did he do it because he wanted to give his MAGA extremists an opportunity to vote no on something?
Right.
Because he certainly didn't just do what he did to actually execute substantive public policy.
Right. Right. That's interesting. That's the thing. That's the big question. I think Representative DeLauro, she's on the finance committee, right? The budget committee. Let's bring up her talking points. Mary, I mean, there's a lot. She hits on this pretty hard. There you go. So what's in this? This is veterans paying for their shortchanging, isn't it, Mary? Right here.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And shout out to Ranking Member Rosa DeLauro. She's the top Democrat in the House Appropriations Committee who has been, really holding the line in this insane extremist Congress headed by MAGA Republicans.
Right.
But Rosa DeLauro's not backing down. She's the one who's been sounding the alarm, highlighting the extreme nature of the bills, the multiple bills now that House Republicans have been proposing. So she's referring here to the $12 billion that they shortchanged the VA. She also has highlighted the impact on national security and, again, the voter suppression element of the CR. Now, again, the CR failed, right? Because Mike Johnson's incompetent. Just the list. It's a laundry list of just really awful MAGA policies.
Let's page through some of these. Social Security, because Social Security Administration needs more people. They hired a bunch of people this year, right? So this doesn't fund those people, does it?
Right. Well, and, Social Security, that's another thing that Republicans love going after.
Right.
to Max's point, like, this isn't good policy, or it's not also not smart politics, but these folks are following Donald Trump's lead. He says, kill the bill, they will kill the bill. Hurts
Yeah.
national security. Thank you, General Brown, for sounding the alarm.
Yep.
The really scary thing here that I hope, folks are paying attention to as we're scrolling through this list, despite how bad this bill is, and there's going to be more coming up on the screen now. Yep, it Project 2025 in action right here in legislation. This bill is awful. It's still got 200 House Republicans to vote for it.
Wow.
It didn't pass. It fell short. But 200 of them were still willing to co-sign Donald Trump's extremist nonsense.
Wow.
Early voting is starting today, and I just want to, I hope folks are paying attention. They can see how much is on the line here. We're very, very close already in the House of Representatives. Now, the good news is there were a few vulnerable Republicans who took this real bad vote. They voted directly against veterans, voted against U.S. national security when they were voting for this CR. A couple of Republicans that are being challenged by Great Vote Vets members in California, in Virginia. Early voting starts today in Iowa. So, I definitely recommend folks look it up.
Virginia's
represented by. Yep.
I think it's an interesting question
Virginia,
as well.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I just think it's an interesting question
ahead,
as well, Mary, considering that really incredible breakdown that you just outlined. There are times when Speaker Johnson throws something on the floor and waits for it, and there are times when he throws something on the floor ceremonially. I would venture to say that he didn't lift a finger to try to get everything passed, right? Remember here, we're criticizing a bill that he couldn't even pass. So, a government shutdown actually becomes more likely, the consequences of which, as disastrous as what you just laid out, are even worse, right? So it puts us all into this god-awful situation where, what we're up against here is a political party that is saying, I want destruction in the next 45 days, because I'll just try to pin it on the Harris-Biden, Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And that means that they don't care about VA patients. That means that they don't care about our national security. That means that they don't care about people who rely on Social Security every single month. All they care about are their own political fortunes. And that to me, is not just wrong, but who the hell would want to vote for someone like that?
Well, that's it. We're facing an election, right? I mean, the pivotal question, and the House is in danger. The House is in big danger, and now you got all this stupidness around the country. They're literally just, you couldn't hand us a better demonstration of why we have to flip this House. I don't look, I tell people all the time, you guys, when I do my show on my other channel too, look, you may like your Republican rep. I'm sure he or she may be good dudes, and they answer your calls and they come to your Chamber of Commerce. Rob Whitman used to be my representative down there in Virginia, good dude. I think he got a little off track when Trump took office. Look, folks, if you like a Republican, it doesn't matter. They're part of this, right? You see what's happening, right? You've got to vote to flip this House. So you're going to have to gut it out, pick your Democrat, because this is what's going on, man. They are demonstrating daily just how incompetent, how little they care about governing. I mean, I joked after he did this vote, Max, you'll laugh. I said, I have to give Speaker Johnson credit. He finally passed a bipartisan action. Unfortunately, it was against his own bill. He did unite the Democrats and the Republicans against him because he's so fucking incompetent. I'm not supposed to cuss you. Sorry, John. Mary, the other thing I want to get to is, they did pass a bill last week that was a funding bill, right? It was sort of a stopgap funding bill for the VA with several, I think, $1 billion, right? And it confused even me, who's a professional political guy, in theory. It just means I look at Twitter a lot. But as a professional political guy, I was a little confused by that stopgap funding. I think it confused a lot of veterans, too. I had my own son-in-law text me like, hey, are we good now with our GI Bill? And I don't want to tell him he might not be. Can you explain what that bill was they passed and why it was sort of a head fake?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest, like no disrespect to your former colleagues, Max, but some members were confused about it as well. um,
He knows.
once
Max knows.
right, they were on the other side. It's fine, no surprises there. So the VA again was enormously successful this past year, delivering GI Bill benefits, PACT Act benefits, medical services to veterans enrolled in the VA system. As a result, they ended up being about $15 billion short
Yeah.
in sort of two different accounts. One account was the account for veterans benefits checks that go out on the first of every month. So your pension checks, your disability checks, you get a check from the VA every month. The
This
VA
guy
was
knows.
about $3 billion that the VA needed for Congress to pass an emergency bill to replenish that account. They needed that check by September 20th in order to send out checks on time on October 1.
Okay.
Republicans made kind of a big stink about this. Tommy Tuberville was threatening to block the bill. Yeah, our friend Mike Lee, some of those weirdos among Republican senators were threatening to hold it up. They did end up passing the $3 billion bill for veterans benefits earlier this week. Strong bipartisan support in the House.
Yeah.
So
Really
you know,
strong. Even the usual suspects voted for it, didn't they?
right. So, that is the good news at the end of the day. Some of these folks will come together on a bipartisan basis to support our veterans. So the $3 billion bill, it's been taken care of, passed the House and the Senate. It's been signed into law. Your checks, if you are a veteran, you get a check from the VA October 1, it will arrive on time. You're taken care of. $15 billion total, $3 billion has been taken care of. The $12 billion is the shortfall in VA medical services. So PACT Act, again, burn pits, exposure, things like that. That shortfall needs to be taken care of probably before January, right? So again, that $12 billion needs to be included in the full year budget bill that Congress needs to take care of ASAP, right? Or those medical services, veterans going to the VA for medical care, they're going to feel a pinch starting in as early as January 2025.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that bill that confused me too. So while veterans are good on October 1st, that goes out the window. Now, Max, you said we're the largest government shutdown. I really love our viewers to know I think a lot of people have the misimpression that soldiers will still get paid and others will still get paid. What happens if they don't pass this bill? So if people, I'll do it real quick. So you understand that the United States government's a fiscal spending year. It's a fiscal year. It ends on September 30th. We're 10 days away. On October 1st, it's a new fiscal year, right? It means the budget that they pass. And if you understand the system, they pass a budget, and the budget, there's a funding bill, right? And that's what we're waiting for, is this funding bill. It's two bills. So what happens on October 1st if these clowns, and I'll say it, can't pass a funding bill?
Yes, I mean, look, the budget is kind of symbolic, right? What matters is the actual spending bill. And, it's not as if there's a shutdown and everything's over and we live in some like dystopian world. The shutdowns get worse as time goes on.
Okay.
Because people get their checks every 2 weeks, right? And naturally, if a shutdown happens the day after someone gets their check, they don't feel that shutdown if they're a government worker for 13 days.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of a buffer. But what happens automatically is that non-essential personnel no longer go to work automatically. So that's a double. Well, it's actually a triple whammy. One is, in my humble opinion, there's no such thing as a non-essential government worker. Everybody has a role, and that role trickles down in some way, shape, or form to a benefit that Americans receive and enjoy and rely on, whether they know it or not. Number two is that the workers, the message that they are given is go to work and we're not going to pay you. So what do they naturally start to do? And I would do the same thing. You start calling out sick. You start getting really nervous and start exploring other ways that you can support your family. So even essential services, as determined by the government, start to completely wane. Airport lines get longer. National parks start to close down. People don't receive their Social Security checks or any other form of public assistance that they're relying on. Federal investigations start to completely stall. Our national security starts to wane in ways that are beyond scary. So we end up in this really awful game of chicken, right? Where, people flirt with a government shutdown, and even the first couple of days of that shutdown, they could say, it's not that bad. But before they know it, someone's going to have to blink, or else it just gets awful and painful. Yeah. And every member of Congress is receiving phone calls about their own constituents suffering. Yeah. Suffering because of a lack of government services, or suffering because they're not getting their own salary as a government employee. And it's not like those government employees are not just in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, right? No. These folks are spread out across the nation. But from the vantage point of our conversation, let's not forget service members are not paid either. But I will tell you something kind of crazy. There is one group of people who still gets paid during a government shutdown, and that is members of Congress.
Funny thing, that, right?
And it's funny how those things work, right? And then I'll get off my soapbox after this.
No, please do. Keep soapboxing, baby. That's why you're here.
they all have a really interesting hustle during government shutdowns. What you're going to see is you're going to see Twitter posts and Instagram shots, and they're all going to be West Wing-esque, of them pensively asserting that they will not get paid during the government shutdown, that they will suffer alongside other federal employees who are suffering as a consequence of their own incompetence. What those folks are really doing is delaying the receipt of their payment until the government shutdown ends. Right? Because that is, of course, what everyone else experiences, right? It's not like they don't get paid. It's that their funds get stalled. Yeah. But if you're a legislator, why don't you just not take your money because you fucked up so badly and you caused so much suffering?
Yep.
Just donate it to charity. Try to do some good as a consequence of your existence.
I want to pull a thread, Max. There's another one that people don't talk about, and it really did affect during your shutdown, the longest government shutdown. So I've got a person very close to me, my daughter, who owns a store in Fredericksburg, Virginia. She and her mother own a soap store in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Fredericksburg, if you know it, is about 45 miles south of DC. Everybody there is Marine, military, Pentagon. FBI headquarters is at Quantico. I mean, look, you can't swing a dead cat. Oh, shit. Don't talk about dead cats. You can't swing a living, loved pet. Sorry. Without
this is going well.
A government employee, right? You can't, I mean, everybody's government employees. And what happens during these government shutdowns, there's been 2 or 3 of them. They've been open 12 years this year. Guess what people stop doing who work for the government aren't getting paid? They stop buying fancy soap, okay? They stop buying refrigerators. They stop buying furniture. They don't buy nice clothes. See, a government shutdown has second and third order effects far beyond, just like you mentioned, Social Security and all those things. And that's before we talk about government contractors. So during your shutdown, Max, we heard stories of hundreds of government contractors, because what happens for government contractors is much worse. They don't get paid at all. And by the way, government contractors, which by the way, for people who don't know, I think the number is somewhere around 8 million, if you might know, Matt, 8 million or more government contractors work for our federal government. If they don't work, they don't get paid. So what happens for a government contractor? You've got 50 people that work for you. The government pays you, you pay them. If we shut down for 10, 15, 30 days, they don't get paid, which means guess what happens to those government work contractors? They get laid off. I heard of at least like 100 government contractors who've been in business for decades went out of business. It's those things we don't talk about.
Say nothing. Look, let's say you run a deli on Capitol Hill.
Right.
Let's say you run a restaurant outside of a large federal agency. The list, I mean, that we could think of thousands of different potential scenarios. that restaurant that relies on government employees going to the
They're
restaurant,
toast.
they don't get
No.
refunded. You know, that becomes just a disastrous month. So the whole thing is awfully scary.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we had some more of Congressman Delores, like paragraphs. Mary, maybe we could walk it. John, why don't you throw those up so we could talk about just the historic stupidity of this? Mary, I mean, yeah, here we go. Wow. Gracious.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, to Max's point, like the government can't operate, Department of Defense, none of these agencies can operate when Republicans keep kicking the can down the road like this. What agencies need is a full 12-month budget bill, appropriations
Wow.
bill. In this
Wow.
Congress, they for the last 40 years, no continuing resolution has lasted as long as the one that Mike Johnson and House Republicans proposed. They proposed a 6-month, half a year autopilot bill where DoD can't start new programs. The VA is going to have to start cutting medical services because Republicans can't get their act together because they are so historically incompetent.
In the majority, they have the majority. They could pass the bills, but all he has to do is do his damn job, right? Like you said, Max, negotiate, talk to Senator Schumer. I mean, do their effing job, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They just don't want to do their job, do they?
No, and what's crazy too is that because of the fact that to get anything substantive done in the Senate requires 60 votes. No matter what the circumstances, it requires leadership and bipartisan compromise. So,
yeah, more here. I mean, these are the details, right? Spend $0 as fast as you like. This would be laughable. The vets are afraid to serious illness, so we need their medical care. I mean, you know, this also affects their big, you know, all the Republicans talk about is the Choice Act, right? It's in Project 2025, Mary, right? They want to outsource more of our health care out. Go back to that last one, John. They want to outsource more of our health care out to the private sector, right? But you know, here's a little secret that people don't talk about that, by the way, folks. The Republicans keep telling you that we can get our private healthcare on the market, but here's a secret, you guys. Do you guys ever have trouble? Ever heard of people having a hard time getting Medicaid, getting a doctor to cover Medicaid, or a doctor to cover, now with me, TRICARE? That's because they don't get paid on time. It's a constant drama trying to get paid. Okay, so that's why a lot of doctors on the private sector aren't accepting the choice money. This government shutdown, this government resolution, what does it do, Mary? What does it do to those guys? Doesn't pay them, does it?
Right, that's exactly right. Once again, veterans are always the one that these Republicans are going after. They don't actually want veterans to have a choice, right? Do you
Right.
want to go to the VA or do you want to go to a private practice? Your choice. Democrats support money for both of those things. Republicans don't, right? Because once again, they want to dismantle the VA. They don't want the government to serve our veterans.
Right. And so the great talk of, oh, veterans have a choice to go to a private doctor. Well, if your private doctor isn't going to get paid, he's not going to see you either. So we're just the end state is veterans who need really important medical care just aren't going to get them because these clowns in Congress, Republican clowns, won't fund the actual money in the first place. What's the next one, John? National security. So, Max, you know, you talking that you're still stepping up first. God bless you, stepping up in the National Guard. My son-in-law is a National Guardsman. He's stepping up still. You know, this is a big national security problem, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, no, I made the switch over to Army Reserve recently, so I guess I'm.
Sir. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. None of that impacts my politics, and it's my honor to serve. But I just kind of want to emphasize here that it's not just about the money when it comes to a CR's impact on national security.
Okay.
It's about how the money is spent, because our enemies aren't beholden to CRs. Russia, Vladimir Putin is not sitting back being like, shit, I want to invest more in low-cost autonomous drones, but this man, the Polar Bureau, is just kicking my ass with this CR, right? You know,
That's weird.
So, no,
Yeah.
but if the American people believe that amidst all of the political chaos, that when we someone to Congress or elect a president and their administration executes that president's vision, that they will always put national security first, even ahead of politics, even ahead of their own election. And this is just such a clear example of that not happening. And CRs happen when there is a Democrat in the White House and Republicans have control of at least one house in Congress. Notice that this doesn't happen when there's a Republican in the White House, but Democrats have control of Congress.
Yeah.
At that point, Democrats say, no, national security comes first. It is the Republican Party, time and again, that puts politics ahead of our own shared collective security, both at home and abroad. The other point that I just want to make here is, we often think about national security in a very theoretical way, right? Protecting the homeland, stopping, submarines or whatever it might be from coming into New York Harbor. All extraordinarily important stuff. But national security is also about that 24-year-old kid sitting in Iraq right now that deserves the tools and the resources that are most capable and most advanced of protecting him and his brothers and sisters.
Yep.
And it's difficult to take $1 trillion bill and bring it back down to that. But if we have a CR, that means that unit in Iraq won't be able to purchase the most up-to-date counter-drone system. Plain and simple. And people could lose their lives as a result. That's how serious this is.
It's not a joke. And the Republicans also talk about national security. Oh, the border invasion. Guess who else doesn't get paid? The people on the freaking border, do they? Mary, so I guess we got to turn to the big question, right? Which is, we're getting close here. What's next? What are you hearing? What's the rumors? Because I saw not diddly. Chuck Schumer's like, hey, we're over here in the Senate. What do you want to do? So what do you hear on the Hill?
Look, I will give credit where credit is due. I think Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans are going to come together and propose a patch through CR, right? So a short-term CR is going to get us through November. That's going to give reasonable negotiators on. Well, no, I think they're going to get it done in the lame duck. Because again, I think there are to Max's point, I think there are enough moderate Republicans in the House who realize how bad a longer CR would be for national security. I think they're going to, before they leave in 10 days, leave for their August break, Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats are going to come together, propose a clean CR, none of this voter suppression nonsense.
Okay.
And I think Democrats, the vast majority of Democrats, plus a few reasonable Republicans, will carry it through the House.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think, Max, the SAVE Act vote? So let's do them. I'm going to make you conjecture. Do you think that was a head fake on Johnson's? Like he head faked the SAVE Act, knowing it would fail, knowing that Trump demanded it, knowing the MAGA representatives, wanted it. Do you think maybe it was a little bit of a head fake to let it fail and then come back to the clean CR, or am I giving him way too much credit? I suspect I am, but still.
Maybe.
I love that answer. It's a great answer.
But I guess it doesn't actually matter, because
there you go.
The point here, what he said today, is I'm not the speaker. The speaker is the head of the Freedom Caucus. That's who the speaker is. And I am going to bring the American people through extensive anxiety and turmoil as a consequence of my incapacity to lead. And so, again, I want to bring this down to the individual, right? We all know that there's millions of veterans out there that rely on their benefits every single day. They're all reading the news. They're very astute, and they're hearing, as a consequence of Speaker Johnson's failure to lead, oh man, come October, this might not happen. I might not get this assistance.
Yeah.
Do you think that that veteran is sleeping well tonight? Absolutely not. Despite the fact that that veteran put themselves literally through hell to have our back, to protect our way of life, tonight, that veteran is going to sleep horribly, right? That person who knows whether they work for whatever federal agency it might be, but they have kids who rely on their hard work. You think they're going to sleep well tonight? Absolutely not.
I'm one
Millions
of
of
them.
people.
My future son-in-law is a GI Bill student right now, getting his degree. He gets housing and he gets his GI Bill payment. He's got another payment coming up for the new semester. I know for a fact he's stressing because he's freaking texting me and saying, "Are we in trouble?" And what do I tell a young man who gave 10 years to his country, right? Is
Exactly
100% disabled, 100% disabled. He gave more than the average person. Only like 20% of veterans are 100%. And he's sitting here texting me, "Am I gonna be able to pay my rent?"
Yeah.
It's
No,
just so screwed up. I'm so damn sick of it.
There's only one person who's sleeping well tonight, and that's Speaker Johnson, because he knows that he appeased his extremist base, and he'll protect his speakership for yet another day. But as a consequence, all of these other incredible heroes and incredible public servants are going to live in utter turmoil and nervousness.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And businesses, like I said, those businesses, Abigail Spanberger, former CIA operative, represented Virginia 7 right now, going to run for governor of Virginia. She has spent a lot of time talking about how Project 2025 will impact with Schedule F, the danger of Schedule F to Virginia's economy, millions of veterans being laid off. Right, Mary, and this is, it feels like these idiots are giving us a preview, right? If you want to see what a Schedule F, where they can fire hundreds of thousands of government employees simply for, they've actually said in that if they donated to a Democrat at some point, that's cause for firing, right? So it's almost like they're giving us a preview of what Project 25 is going to do with Schedule F is implemented, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And I think, we've talked a lot about what Congress is already doing under House Republicans to implement Project 2025. And they will do far worse if they keep the House, if they take the Senate, if Trump is elected. But it goes far beyond the VA and their plans to dismantle the VA. Another really dangerous thing that I don't think is getting enough attention. J.D. Vance was out there the other day saying, I don't care if they're legal immigrants or not legal immigrants, we're going to call them illegal. The candidate, the Republican vice presidential candidate, is saying we will not be constrained by the laws. We already know Donald Trump doesn't care about the laws. He's a convicted felon on 34 counts and counting. The vice presidential candidate has said, he's on the record, he's saying this publicly, we don't care what the law is. We are going to do whatever the hell we want. We know what they're going to do. It's laid out in Project 2045. They're going to fire generals who don't agree with Trump politically. They're going to use the military to conduct mass deportations, whatever they want to do. President Trump will carry out retaliation against anyone who disagreed with him politically. Right? So that means groups like Vote Vets that advocates for veterans and for progressive policies. It means his political enemies, right? People who stood up to him and tried to expose the dangers of what he was doing. We are all at risk. It's the VA, it's veterans, it's all Americans.
Yep. And then we have to take it that seriously. I think if we're telling our viewers and our followers, and we'll probably send out emails too on that, is that this is the preview of what we could. It's just going to get worse with Trump. I mean, you were there, Max. I mean, a Trump administration, they got away with things last time. They're not going to be unchecked. They're going to be unchecked this time, aren't they, Max?
No. Look, you got this guy basically saying, look, I didn't know what I was doing the first term, but you better believe I'm going to be prepared this time.
Yep.
I mean, that's unheard of, that a presidential candidate openly asserts his prior incompetence and ignorance. But they have a bench. They have a bench that
Yep.
is united around this, anti-patriotism, anti-American, anti-national security agenda, anti-veteran agenda, and it's frightening.
Yep.
And it's frightening because they are coming prepared. Um, when you think about what does it mean to be pro-national security,
Yep.
I often think about how they're coming out saying we're going to fire 50% of government employees, right? That's been like a big Vivek Ramaswamy play. That's been a big Donald Trump play. I'm going to come in, I'm going to fire them all. We're going to reduce the federal budget, the federal payroll by a significant number. That means that they are going to walk into VA facilities and fire half the nurses. That means they're going to walk into VA facilities and fire half the surgeons. That means that they are going to walk onto bases and fire half of the support staff. And what you're going to see as a consequence is, if our commitment to service members is if we are there for their full continuum of service, from the second that they sign that dotted line all the way towards them addressing the literal and figurative and proverbial battle scars of their service, that oath that we take to them will be significantly infringed upon. Whereas as they engage in this, anti-government agenda, because no one likes the notion of government if you don't actually think about what government's doing. Right? If it's some nameless bureaucrat that doesn't do anything all day, I can understand how that can be a powerful message, but that's not who it is. It's the nurse. It's the person operating the front desk at the VA who each and every day is meeting a veteran, making eye contact with them, and telling them that they are with friends and family and loved ones. They're in a safe space. That's the person that gets fired, and it's the veteran that suffers.
Yep. And the one thing that this administration has done an incredible job of, and in the Biden administration, I cannot give them enough kudos for what they've done at VA. Secretary McDonough has been there the entire time. There's been almost no turnover. He's even disciplined. There was a bonus that went out that he didn't approve. He actually clawed it back from his senior executives who didn't deserve it. I mean, the guy is doing a great job. But they have hired thousands of mental health care professionals that we so desperately need. Look, everybody likes to do the push-ups, right, Max? Mary, I'm doing my 22-a-day push-up. We got to stop veteran suicide. These guys are going to stop paying those mental health professionals because of a government shutdown. They're going to fire a lot of them. So save me your BS about caring about veterans' health and veterans' mental health and helping the flag when you're actually going to fire the people that are stopping the veteran suicide epidemic dead in its feet. Are we right, Mary? And that's what we're talking about. I don't think people get. These assholes love. I did it again. Sorry, John. These guys love to go and say, "Oh, Washington's a cesspool of unnecessary government bureaucrats. Oh, they're all just typing all day. They're useless." No, they're saving our brothers and sisters' lives, aren't they, Mary?
That's exactly right. And the hypocrisy is really astonishing. You can see it. You see it every Veterans Day, every Memorial Day. The cute little posts that some of these MAGA extremists put up. We love our veterans. I'm gonna go hug a flag, right? And it's utter nonsense. Then you look at how they're voting. They tried to block the PACT Act. They vote for government shutdown. They're trying to privatize the VA. Every time you turn around, it's another anti-veteran vote. Because again, they know that a strong government, a strong VA is good for our country. It's good for Americans, but it is a threat to the extremist Republican agenda laid out in Project 2025. That's what they're trying to do. It's anti-veteran, pro-war, anti-American.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me sick to my stomach so many times. I mean, we don't dig in and understand who you're talking about when you talk about who these policies hurt and who. I mean, I'm never going to forget the picture of Ted Cruz and those assholes high-fiving in the well of the Senate after they killed the PACT Act, the largest expansion of veterans health care since the Vietnam War. That's me. And I'll tell you a personal story about who this fires. So VA did a really good job of reaching out to people and getting us to influencers. I hate the term. Creators to come and actually briefed us on the PACT Act deadlines and asked us to reach out to our audiences, those who have veteran audiences, and get them to sign up for the PACT Act. Because there was a deadline. For many people don't know that one of the wonderful things the PACT Act they put in was that if you signed up within 12 months after it being passed, they would backdate your money that you got. If you got approved at some point, you would get paid all the way back to when they passed the PACT Act. Guys, let's just say you go from 50% disability to 100% disability. That's an increase of about $2,500 a month. You would get a check for over $25,000 in back pay for your veterans benefits. That's life-changing money to many veterans. Okay, so let's be honest about that. So they talked me into filing. One of my soldiers from Desert Storm, my original war, I did 4 of them, but my Desert Storm soldier, he had cancer, and he had never filed. And he filed under the PACT Act. And under the PACT Act, his specific cancer was tied to Desert Storm, because we were one of the units that got exposed when they blew up that big dump. I don't know if you know this, Max. You're probably too young, but they blew up a huge ammo dump in Iraq. It's southern Iraq.
So's Mary.
Yeah. Mary, you're both kids. And I was there. I've got this wonderful picture of the mushroom cloud. Under the mushroom cloud, not a good place to be when they blew up a chemical weapons dump. And so many of my peers in my unit in the 24th Infantry Division came down with what we call Gulf War syndrome. And that included things like very weird cancers. And my soldier, one of my crew chiefs, my helicopters, got one of those cancers. And that young man, well, he's not young now, he's my age, but when he was a young man then, he went to the VA PACT Act. He filed under the PACT Act. In 4 months, he got 100% approval, 100% disability for his cancer. And they backdated it all the way to the date he made a significant amount of money for his lifelong disability, a cancer that damn near killed him. And for me, so they talked me into filing. I filed. I had never filed for PTSD. Everybody who knows me knows I have it. Apparently, I was the only one that didn't. And so I filed. I lost some men in combat. I lost my interpreter, was beheaded. I mean, I came away. None of us walks away unscarred. And so I put in for it this time. They talked me into it, and I filed. And under it wasn't PACT Act, but it was this new wonderful website they've got. And in 4 months, they approved me from 50 to 100, and they backdated my pay a little bit. But here's the story. The reason I want to tell the story, I did the Gulf War syndrome stuff wrong, right? I have Gulf War syndrome, we think, but Gulf War syndrome is weird. You don't have Gulf War syndrome because you have X. You have X because of Gulf War syndrome. So when I filled out my paperwork, I did it wrong because I'm bad at that. And a young man, a guy, it was a young man. Actually, he's a former soldier himself, called me from the VA and walked me through what I did wrong on my paperwork. He said, Colonel Wellman, he always call you by your rank. He goes, Colonel Wellman, your stuff, all your PTSD stuff, thank you for your service. Wow. But you did the Gulf War syndrome stuff. And he walked me through for 45 minutes, you guys, on the phone. Just a vet. I'm just one of 16 million veterans. And he walked me through step by step how to unscrew my paperwork. And I refiled my paperwork, and he kept my case open. And I ended up getting more credit for my foot that was all screwed up, that my bad shoulders that came apart, just disintegrated after I got in the military. He did that for me. That's the guy that will lose his goddamn job if these monsters implement Schedule F, or these monsters close the government down in 10 days. A guy who served his country himself, whose job he cares. This guy was damn near in tears talking about PTSD. I'm not kidding you guys. This isn't a service story from that asshole. This truly was a powerful emotional connection with a fellow soldier who took the time in his job that we pay him for to call a fellow veteran and walk him through his disability paperwork. These are the assholes. Those assholes want to fire. They want, in Project 25, right, Mary? They intend to use an automated system for that process. They want to fire those guys, my fellow veteran, who took the time to walk me through and get the benefits I earned. They want to fire those guys. I want our viewers and you guys understand just how monstrous this shit is.
Well, Project 2025 is really extraordinary because it lays out the Republican vision for America. And their vision is not a government that works for veterans, that serves veterans, that serves the working class, that serves the American people. It's an agenda that serves wealthy billionaires and tax cheats like Donald Trump and the folks that he most admires. And those are not hardworking Americans. Donald Trump does not care about hardworking Americans, veterans, U.S. service members. He cares about himself and fellow dictators like Viktor Orban, right?
Right.
That's who he's going to prioritize in the Trump administration.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, and it's written. And when I interviewed Pete Buttigieg at our event in Chicago, we had a Vote Vets event in Chicago, and I had the distinct privilege to interview fellow veteran Pete Buttigieg, and he goes, it's amazing. It's the first time ever somebody actually wrote their evil plan down, not her pay. I mean, it was like, it's kind of amazing. It's like it literally is like Dr. Evil issued a manual, right? And here's my plan. Public. You can print it yourself at home. Like, oh, okay, well, thanks. Look, we've been here for an hour. I'm sure folks it's a Friday night. I know, Max, you got things to do. Closing comments, Mary. I'll give it to you, then we'll give it to the congressman.
It's early voting starts today. I want to encourage folks to get out and vote for veteran Democrats up and down the ticket. We've got a Vote Vets member at the top of the ticket now, Tim Walz. He is going to fight for veterans. He is going to stand up for our country. And we need to defeat Trump and Project 2025.
3 states going. I got a banner on the screen. Minnesota, Virginia, and South Dakota are voting right now. 6 more states will join them in mid-October. I know many states are opening their absentee ballot options right now. Folks got no excuse. I did read an article today that in Fairfax, Virginia, which might lean Democrat, you never know, they had more voters on the first day of early voting by 1 o'clock than they did all of the first day 4 years ago. So by the tune of, like, I think they had 2020, they had 1,500 by 1 o'clock. So that's the moment.
Wow.
So thanks, Mary.
That's fascinating.
It is. It is. And you mentioned something important, Mary. Congressman Tim Walz in 2006 was one of the very first endorsements that Vote Vets gave. Was Tim Walz for Congress, and he went to Congress. We're going to talk about that, by the way. I'll mention it now. We're going to have a post-debate spin room like we did. Max joined me last time. Probably get him drag him out again. He's going to be late. He's going to have to not drink all night. And we're going to bring Max on. We're going to do a post-debate spinner. We got 2 vets arguing or debating for the first time, and I don't know, but I remember. So join us right here live on Vote Vets after the debate. We're going to talk about those things. Max, last comment before we let these people go to their Friday night.
Look. I hope you all and your audience has a wonderful night. Thank you for a great conversation.
Well, I appreciate your time, sir, and your unique insight of having served, especially having served during a shutdown like that one. We would be lost without you. We appreciate all the support you give to Vote Vets, and also, I gotta say, as a fellow veteran, thanks for continuing to serve. People don't realize I was a reservist on 9/11. I did 13 years in the active Army, and then I actually got out, and then in 2000, and I don't know, something happened in 2011 or 2001. They threw a war, invited me and all my friends, but I was a reservist that day and I got called in, and then I had a really good high-paying job in Atlanta, Georgia, and they figured out that I just used to happen to work for a guy named Tommy Franks, and they put me on orders for the rest of that. I went back in the active Army 2 weeks later. So people think reserve is no big deal, but reserve is a true.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you.
So thank you, brother. We appreciate you. I'll let you guys go. And I'll close the thing. Thanks for joining us, Mary and Max. You guys are real heroes.
See you soon.
Cheers. Well, another great show. And we've been here, man. We again. Man, look at you guys. Look at that turnout. God bless you. I see so many regulars. We have regulars now in the comments. Thank you so much. Hi, Joan. Good friend of mine, Joan Crenshaw. We are so blessed to have you in the Vote Vets family. I got to make my pitch, y'all. We got to pay for all this. We are there. We are fighting. We've got something really, really cool to announce in just a few days that you may get a chance to see me out on the road. I'll kind of hint at that. It's going to be a busy bus time. So if you want to see us in action, you want to meet your Vote Vets, your favorite Vote Vets leaders, and me and Mike Levine will be on the road. Some other cool people. We're gonna go out. We're gonna run around the country a little bit. So I'll just more to follow on that. We can't do it without y'all. So votevets.org. Go on over there. if you cost a couple of bucks, I would ever feel appreciate it. It helps us do this work. It helps us bring these shows to you, bring these brilliant minds. We got so much more coming. Look, folks, we are, what did I say? I think we had, 47 days out, right? Or 46 days. So we are 46 days out. Okay. As Tim Waltz keeps saying, Sergeant Major Waltz keeps saying, we sleep when we're dead. Okay. People ask me every day what they can do to get involved. It's up to you. Volunteer, join us at VoteVets, buy some gear from votevets.org. We have a wonderful set of gear. We got, Veterans for Kamala hats and shirts, and we got Veterans for Kamala signs. We're selling them fast as we can. Come on out. Come on. Wow. Thank you. Come on out. We've got, you are living in a town right now that needs your help. You are living in a town. There's a race in your town, a Democrat in your town that needs you to volunteer. Phone bank. You can text bank. You just sit at a computer all day and send text message. You can postcard. Those are still a thing. You can get out on the side of look, y'all, get out on the side of the road. Grab that yard sign, grab 6 of your friends and some donuts, go on the business intersection in your town and wave those damn signs, because that matters. That matters. And if you can volunteer with the Harris campaign, go on over to their website. But come see us at votevets.org. Come see us. We're out on the road next month. I would love to talk to you guys in person and show folks what we do and why this movement matters. So 46 days and a wake up, and we're done. We're done with Donald Trump. We're going to flip this house. We're going to do the right thing. So in the meantime, check out all the great races we support. If you go to our website, you'll see the races we've endorsed, the elected officials that are out there doing incredible things. You can make a difference. It's not up to us. It's up to you. It's people. It's people that matter. So I'm not going to keep you busy. Once again, I am Fred Wellman. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the United States Army. I am the host of Online with Vote Vets. You can find me at FP Wellman online. You can find us at Vote Vets everywhere you look, every damn channel. We're same place everywhere. We're going to do more of these. We just did a great video with Kayla Williams about Project 2025's effect on veterans. I'm doing more next week. So much more to come. This is the place for it. We appreciate you. God bless you guys. God bless our service members. God bless our veterans. We will see you soon. I'm Fred Wellman. Have a great night.